Property investment terms, what do they actually mean and what do they relate to? Now, I know very often when you're sort of trying to teach yourself anything about property, you come across terms and you think, what on earth does that mean? And it can feel overwhelming. Well, it doesn't have to be. And I know sometimes it can feel like that maybe people are talking or writing in Morse code. So I'm going to break down the most common ones for you to help you understand what property investment terms mean and how they can help you understand how to invest in property. My name's Roy and I absolutely love teaching people about property. I've been involved in property for well over 30 years. I'm not going to reveal my age, but look, I really do enjoy it. I love everything about property. And like anybody, I can get confused and overwhelmed as well. I remember when I first started learning about accountancy and the terminology the accountants were using, I thought, wow, can't somebody make it nice and simple, which is what I want to do. So in this video, I'm going to reveal some of the most common property investment terms to help you understand exactly what they are. Now, number one, the most obvious is freehold property. What is freehold property? Well, a freehold property is a property that you own, okay, or you can buy. The land it's actually built on, as well as all of the surrounding gardens and maybe driveway and so on. So that is the freehold. Also with the freehold, there is no time limit as to how long you own that property. You own it forever, okay? If you were to live forever, you'd own it forever. So that property, that freehold property becomes yours. That's what freehold means. It's a weird word really, freehold. But look, it is not free, but it means that you own it outright, okay? Now, the other one, of course, is called leasehold. What is a leasehold property? So leasehold is when you buy a property, okay, but you don't actually own it. You buy it for a certain length of time, say 999 years. After that, okay, it ends, which means you no longer own the property. The person who owns the property is the person who owns the land it's built on, the landlord. And they will sell the leasehold, i.e. the property, to you. Now, you may have come across leaseholds for 99 years. And if you've owned that property, that leasehold for, say, 80 years, which means there's 20 years left, it means in some ways you're running out of time. Because at the end of that 20 years that's left, you will no longer own that property unless the landlord is willing to extend the lease for you, which means you may have to buy it again. The biggest problem with leaseholds is that they don't hold their value as well as freehold properties. And as time runs out, it becomes more difficult to sell that lease on to somebody else because people know time is running out. So if there's only a 5-year lease left or 10-year lease left out of 99 years, it's probably a bad investment unless you can negotiate a new lease with the landlord who owns the land beforehand. So that is what leasehold is. Okay, it means that you only own the property for a set period of time, whatever that time limit is within the contract of the leasehold contract. So that's leasehold. So far we've learned about freehold and we've learned about leasehold. Now another common one is profit. Now we all know what profit is, or do we? Well, profit is the difference between the price you pay for something and the price you sell it for. So let's say you're a shopkeeper and you buy a tin of beans, okay, for 20 pence from the manufacturers, and you sell that tin of beans for 50 pence. That means you've made 30 pence profit. Yeah, the difference between what you bought it and to what you sold it for. So that is the gross profit that you've made by selling that tin of beans after you bought it from the manufacturer. Now, this is where it may get a little bit confusing because some people say, well, no, that's profit. Why do you call it gross profit? Well, the reason why it's called gross profit is because that is the actual amount of money, okay, that people have exchanged that goes into the till compared to what you paid for it to what you sold it. Now then, it gets a little bit more confusing because the word net profit kicks in. Oh, you may say, what is net profit? Well, net profit is the same in some ways as gross profit, But with net profit, you've got to deduct all of your costs out of the equation. So you've bought a tin of beans from the manufacturer. You've driven to the factory to pick up the tin of beans, okay? And you've driven back to your shop and then you've sold it. So the cost in fuel to go and get it, and maybe time, might have been 10 pence for argument's sake. So you deduct the 10 pence from your profit because it's cost you money to get that tin of beans and put it on the shelf in your shop. The same applies to property. You buy property for, say, let's say you bought a property for £100,000. Okay, and you sold it in a year's time for £150,000. The gross profit you've made is £50,000. However, the net profit is not as much because don't forget, you've had to pay estate agent fees. Okay, you may have had to carry out some repairs to that property. You may have paid maybe interest on the mortgage for that property. So you've got to deduct all of those costs away from the money you've made, i.e. from what you bought it for to what you sold it for. So in this case with property, you made a profit of £50,000. You may have to deduct, say, £5,000 worth of costs that you incurred, okay, which means you've made a net profit of £45,000. Simple when you know how. I would highly recommend that even just with those three terms, okay, you write them down if you feel that you're not going to remember them, because at the end of the day, they are really important terms to understand and to make sure that you calculate the costs incurred if you're buying and selling something. The same applies to maybe if you buy something and you want to sell it on eBay. Just like the shopkeeper, you may have to pay for postage. So your net profit, okay, will include your gross profit less the cost of postage, okay, will give you the net profit. So we know what freehold is. We know what leasehold is, okay. We now know what gross profit is, and we also know what net profit is. And this is something that's very, very important. Regardless of whether you're running any type of business or property business, understanding the difference between gross and net profit is so critical. And more often than not, you can work out those costs before you even buy a property, to whether you're going to flip it or rent it on or whatever, because the amount of money you make is so important, not only to be able to pay the bills and the costs that you incur, but to make a profit. Because at the end of the day, if you're not going to make money, what's the point in doing it? Anyway, until my next video, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, give us a like, and I will see you on the next video. Ciao for now.